The following program was made possible thanks to the generous support of our Kickstarter backers.
Well, first Holmes was born, then he got fat, bald, and tired.
Sup, Holmes?
Beware your host, Jonathan Holmes!
Thank you so much, Sinistar, for getting up early for this special early morning Sup Holmes with Ojiro Fumoto. Did I say that right?
Yeah, you did.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. It's 10 o'clock my time. I'm guessing it's like 10 p.m. your time. Is that right?
It's actually midnight here, like zero.
No.
Yeah.
You must be so tired. Thank you.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I had nothing to do all day, so I was just nervous about this thing tonight. Just like.
Oh, you don't have to. You are a shoo-in. People are so excited. You could just show up and say, "You're welcome," and people would applaud because they love Downwell so much. You created Downwell, a game that's currently on Steam and telephones, if I remember correctly, and is coming to PlayStation consoles with the help of Devolver. Am I remembering that right?
Right. Yeah. It's all through the help of Devolver Digital. Yeah. So it's coming to PS Vita and PS4 very soon, I think. I'm not sure about the particular dates yet, but yeah, they are coming.
Awesome. So Downwell, for people who don't know, is a game that it immediately resonated with me and felt original, yet somehow I felt tributes to something somewhere. Like there was this vaguely familiar feeling, like I was reminiscing with somebody while we were doing something totally new. I don't know if it's because of the name, because there are a lot of games that I love that happen to have like down or cave or under in them. How did you end up coming up with the name Downwell? Do you remember how that happened?
The name? Actually, so how I started out with the project, I was just making these like super small games in a short amount of time, and I didn't really have names for any of the games that I made. And for Downwell, when it was a prototype without a title, I just like called it actually I called it fall because you keep falling.
Yeah.
Just a verb. And one day I had an opportunity to present the game at this indie meetup thing in Tokyo. And there I had to introduce the game, and I figured that I needed to have a title. So I just made up that Downwell title like in maybe like 5 minutes. I called it that, and it kind of stuck. It had a ring to it, so I just decided to keep it that way.
Yeah. Were there any other names other than Fall that you almost called it that you remember?
It was called Fall, and it was called Well at one time, and then it became Downwell.
I wonder how Fallwell would have done for a name, because that is part of it. You want to fall as well as you possibly can.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you meant that as a double meaning, because it's down a well, but you also want to go down well. You want to go properly.
I never thought about it like that. Yeah.
Well, I tend to overthink things, so get ready for that. And the game didn't always have the signature gameplay mechanic of having guns attached to your shoes. Is that right?
Oh, you're very familiar with that story, are you?
Given it some thought, yes.
So, yeah, initially I just wanted to make a game that's kind of like Spelunky, like randomly generated and have items and stuff. So I didn't have that gumboots idea at the start, but as I went on with development, I just kept on adding stuff and seeing if it worked. And one of the ideas was the gumboots idea, and it just turned out to work so well that I based the entire game around that single mechanic.
Huh. Well, were there other mechanics you could tell us about that you tried and didn't end up keeping?
Well, there weren't that many. So I wanted to make the game for mobile from the get-go. So the reason why the game only uses 3 buttons, which is left, right, and the jump button, is because I wanted to keep the number of buttons to like the smallest amount as I can possibly keep it, as there isn't much like screen like estate or space on mobile phones, right? So I figured I could only use 3 buttons, and well, Oh yeah. Before gunboots, the game was really about combos. So you could only stomp on enemies, and you would just keep going down and just try to land on enemies as consistently as possible. It was a game kind of like that. So the combo system in Downwell now was actually in there from the start.
Huh. But before it was about actually physically landing on the enemies. Do you remember
Yeah.
where you got the idea for the gun boots from? How that happened?
So working within the limitations of the 3 buttons, I just kept on trying out what I could do within that limitation. And
Sure. So it wasn't Bayonetta.
I didn't try
it
out that
wasn't-
many stuff. No, it wasn't Bayonetta. It wasn't Bayonetta. So initially, I just tried out double jumping because it was the simplest thing I could think of, and then I think it was only the double jump that I tried out before the gun boots. Can't remember any other ideas that I tried out.
Sure. And it just clicked when you tried the gun boots. It just felt like this is it, and you ran full force with it.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
And when was that? How long ago did you really finalize the design of Gunwell?
So I started working on the game around, when was that? It was around July of 2014.
Oh, okay.
And I came up with the gumboots idea maybe 2 weeks into development. Yeah.
And then you ran with it from there, and you completed last year, if I remember correctly, 2015. And how has the reception been? How has it gone for you to release?
Well, it has been unbelievable. It's been very good. It got reviewed really well, especially by you guys.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Stephen Hansen from Destructive absolutely loved it. Gave it.
And many other gaming news sites and stuff, they seem to like the game. Right now, I think the Metacritic is at around 80, 84, 85 or something for PC, and maybe a little bit over 90 for iOS version. Yeah, I would have never imagined that the game would be so well received. I figured it would be around 70 to 80, maybe. I would have never imagined that it would become as popular as it did.
And has it sold pretty well?
Yeah, it has. I mean, I would have never dreamed of this amount of success, really. It's been
you liked the game enough to complete it, but it sounds like you still saw things in it that you would imagine other people would cause them to not give it a 10 out of 10. You were thinking, well, people will like this, but I know, or you were at least guessing that people weren't going to absolutely love it and say it was their favorite game of the year, but tons of people did. Do you have a guess as to why it's done as well as it has?
Well, so I am content with how the game came out to be, but there are definitely some things that I still wanted to add, or maybe some elements that I could have polished, but just didn't get done. So maybe that's the reason why I feel that the game is not really like a 10 out of 10 content for me personally. But in hindsight, I don't regret releasing the game as it is now because, well, people like it. So
yeah, I'm trying really, I don't know if you want to give it away, but I can't help but be curious about things you would want to polish. It seems so finely tuned, and like you gave so much thought to making sure that the experience felt good. It is this one of a few. Vlambeer has made some as well. Many developers have made these games that just like on a tactile basis, you just want to feel that way. You don't necessarily care if you win or lose. You know you're probably not going to win, and that's okay. You know that in the moment you're just going to feel friggin' fantastic. You did that, but you think it could feel even better?
No, I think the core mechanic is solid enough, and I think the game loop is fine. But I just wanted to have more secrets and stuff like Spelunky does, because like games like Spelunky or Nuclear Throne, those two are my absolute favorite games, by the way. And those games have so many secrets, so many things to uncover. I don't feel like it has much of that. I could definitely took some time to add maybe a few more secret areas, or oh yeah, I didn't give that much thought to the styles, the play styles that you could choose either. So yeah, that's a regret there, but
Huh.
yeah.
By that you mean the different controller options or something else?
Oh no, the styles that you choose at the start of the game, like the normal style, the arm swing style, the floaty style, that stuff. A levitate style also. Yeah.
You didn't get. It seemed like you gave thought to them, but you could have given more
Did
thought.
it?
You think? Yeah, yeah. To me, the fact that you even thought that up. I mean, that's not the most common option people get, but you gave people the option to.
Well, actually, that was added really at the last minute, and yeah, I definitely didn't give it as much thought as I could have. No.
Huh. Interesting. Why did you end up adding it at the last minute? You just had this like new idea that you wanted to make sure that there was more option, more content, more ability to dig in via different ways for the player?
Yeah. Well, I felt like I needed to add some unlockables, right, for the player to like have an incentive to be replaying the game. And for that, I had the palettes, the color palette stuff. But at the last minute, I just came up with the styles idea. If it I figured it would work, so I just really crunched and just added it, and it seemed to work decently. So I just released it like that. But yeah, I'm not sure what I would do differently, as it works pretty decently now. But I definitely didn't give it as much time as it deserved, I think.
Huh? Yeah, it's interesting that you have this. It sounds like an instinct that you could have done better, and it's a feeling you can't help but have. But it's incongruent with like the reality, which is like you made a little mostly black and white game, black, white, and red. And it is like getting perfect scores and people saying that it's their absolute favorite game of 2015. So people are saying like perfect, shouldn't change a thing. And you're like, I just feel like I should have done better. Which thank goodness, because if you felt like, all right, perfect game, I'm done, no more games for you guys, which is kind of what it felt like in talking to Pixel. Daisuke. Daisuke. When he made Cave Story, he of course wanted it to be better in certain ways, but he was kind of like, that's as good as I can do. And then he stopped like forever, which was terrible for everybody who loves his games. We wanted him to make more for us, but I'm happy to hear that that Downwell, you're not satisfied with it. So I imagine you're gonna keep going, keep making games.
Sure, yeah, definitely. I love making games. It was pretty fun with Downwell, so I tend to keep going with it, yeah.
And was Daisuke, the creator of Cave Story, was he one of your influences? Because you are of this new generation of game developers who sometimes weren't even influenced by like console games. You were just influenced by other indie game developers and maybe didn't dig that deeply into Mario and Sonic and whatnot. So yeah, was he one of your influences, or were other people?
No, definitely. I love Cave Story. I just think Daisuke-san Pixel is super cool that he created that game like single-handedly. And I also really like his second game. Well, not really his second game, but like second commercial release, which is Kero Blaster.
Oh, sure.
I just respect his style. Yeah, definitely. I really wanted to become like him in that making quirky, not really quirky, but like making really cool games.
Independently. Yeah,
Independently,
because
yeah.
Downwell, did anybody work with you on Downwell other than the publishing side? Or was it all?
Yeah, sure. For music, Eirik Suruke of Spelunky's music and Ridiculous Fishing worked with me. And also Jonas Turner from games like Nuclear Throne and Broforce worked on Downwell for sound effects. They have been brilliant. They were brilliant.
Did you end up meeting them at PAX, or did you meet them through the internet?
I met them at GDC.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Obviously, I knew them like before I met them because, well, I love the games that they worked on, and they were like my heroes. And when I met them at GDC, I was super nervous because, well, I was really nervous meeting anyone at GDC because pretty much everyone was my heroes. But yeah, we talked and I showed them my game, and they were like, "Oh, this looks pretty cool." And before you know it, like we're working together. I really couldn't believe it. It was just everything to see it.
And I'm sure they're very proud at this point to be able to put Downwell on their respective resumes because it's,
I hope it is for them. I hope it is. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. I have the privilege of having this outside perspective, and I can tell people. We only met once, and I was really excited to meet you, and I was like touched that you cared about Destructoid and Holmes and stuff like that because you'd made this game that it's how can I explain what I thought of you before we met? Like I'd seen your Twitter handle, and I was like, whoa, that guy's got to be confident because he thinks black and white is gonna be good enough, and he's damn right. So he's got to know he's got the stuff if he's willing to not attempt to be showy with a bunch of flashy pixel art and let the gameplay do the talking. So he's probably super confident. He probably doesn't really want to talk to me or talk to anybody. He just wants to make his game because his game's so good. So he must be one of those guys that only cares about making the thing and not talking to the people. And then we met, and you were like, "Holmes!" and it was hugs. Amazing. So it was such a pleasant surprise that you had all this warmth and humility to share on top of being such a skilled developer. Hope I didn't make you feel. Yeah, before the show started, you were like, "No awkward questions," and I was like, "I'll try." And then I just did that, which probably made you feel super.
No, it's okay. No, I am not confident with the stuff that I make at all. I mean, well, the only reason the game is in black and white is because I'm just really not confident with the style with the pixel art that I can do. I don't come from an artist kind of background, and pixel art was a new thing for me, and I'm just not really good with colors. So that's the reason I decided to keep the game in black and white, because it was really simple to manage, and the red is just added there for an extra effort, I guess.
Well, it works. People don't want to have to take in too much information when they're focusing on doing something. That's a lesson that a lot of people end up learning the hard way or never learning at all, is that if you're asking the brain to deal with all of these colors while you're asking it to make fast moment-to-moment decisions, the brain can get overloaded or just won't be able to focus on any one of those things enough to have a really good time. So the style works, and you knew this humility is working for you and causing you to, before someone meets you, to assume you're super confident and just a master of what you're doing, because when artists try to pack a bunch of detail and they're not very good yet, or they're good but not to the point where it doesn't cover up the fact that they were trying too hard, as they say on the internet so often these days, it can come off as less professional, as less polished. But your game looks completely like that's exactly what you wanted it to be from day one. You always wanted it to look like that. That was the sense I got. But now I'm wondering, if you could make super Downwell with a team of artists and make it a flashy, colorful world. Would you do something like that, or would you make it look like the HD version of Spelunky, or some other idea that we haven't seen?
Well, even though the color limitation of Downwell wasn't really a stylistic decision at the start, I feel like it became its thing as the development went on, and I feel like it looks pretty decent. It has a distinctive style, and if I were to make any sort of sequel thing for Downwell, I think I would keep the color limitation to some shape or form. I don't know if it's gonna be just 3 colors still. I might make it be 6 colors maybe, but yeah, I feel like I would definitely keep the color limitation thing because it has I think it's Downwell's identity, one of the identities.
Absolutely, and it ended up working. The battles in Undertale have a similar look. It seems like black and white pixel art is having something of a resurgence lately, having started, as I remember anyway, back in like 70s PCs or the Game Boy or whatever. That's all they could do back then.
Right.
And now, 30, 40 years later, it's becoming something that teenagers love, from buying Undertale t-shirts and whatnot with just a black and white pixel flower on it.
I want Undertale t-shirts.
Huh?
I want Undertale t-shirts. Oh man, the thing about like indie game merchandise, it's because I live in Japan. It's so expensive to import them here. I wish I lived in the US just for that purpose.
Yeah, well, I'll make a weird deal with you right now. I will buy you Undertale t-shirts and mail them to you. PAX East is coming up. I'm sure they're going to have them. I think Fangamer sells them. And you will have to, in return, because otherwise it'll seem like I'm like buying you off in some way. Like
Okay.
trying to, you will have to send me like a Downwell thing. Like you'll have to do something. You decide what it is.
Okay.
Or you can send me a Mossburger. You can skip the whole thing and just go to Mossburger. You've been to Mossburger before?
Yeah, I have.
Oh, they're
Special about Mossburger.
They're friggin' amazing for someone like me, who rarely gets into Japan. Oh yeah,
Oh, okay.
the rice patty bread and the shaved steak one. I can't remember the name of the particular Mossburger.
Right.
Wow, that's an amazing burger. It's like one of my favorite burgers of all time.
Oh,
And
yeah,
it's just a fast food burger. It's just a common everyday thing for here. It's very special, at least to me.
Right. Yeah, the rice patty must have been quite special for you.
Yeah, I remember sitting alone in Tokyo on a bridge somewhere, just eating a Mossburger and thinking, "This is life. This couldn't be better." So you grew up in Japan, is that right?
Right. But I did live in New Zealand for some years when I was young. Well, I lived in New Zealand for 5 years, from when I was 10 to until I was 15. That's how I can speak English.
And then back to Japan after that?
Yeah, back to Japan.
And then was that due to decisions your family was making?
No, it was my decision.
Huh.
Yeah, this is gonna be a long story, but
I can't wait.
shit. Okay, so initially, when I was around 13 or 12, I wanted to become a composer. Specifically, I wanted to become a composer for video games. And I wanted to get into this like music stuff. And back then, I lived in New Zealand, but it turned out that in Japan, in my hometown back in Japan, there was a high school that was pretty big in music education. So I realized at the age of around 15, I could just go back to Japan and enter that high school and maybe study some stuff with music. And yeah.
And you lived and you moved back to Japan from New Zealand by yourself, or did your family come with you?
Oh, by myself.
All right. So you lived by yourself as of 13?
No. Actually, no. Sorry. Should have explained. My dad remained in Japan.
Okay.
And me, my mom, and my brother went to New Zealand. And then I came back. I went back to dad's house when I was 15.
Okay. Because I thought you like similar to Downwell, just like dove in and like hoped you'd land and not die by like, I'm a 13-year-old moving back to Japan.
No way.
But you had family in both places, so you were able to make that decision. So composing music was one of your passions at an early age, and yet you didn't compose the music for Downwell, at least not all of it. Is that right?
No, actually, composing music wasn't even really my passion because I never managed to do it. I just wanted to. I wanted to, but I could never do it.
So what happened when you tried to compose music back when you were a teenager?
It just didn't work. It was just, I would stop halfway through it. I would be like, I would hate the thing that I made, and I would just quit. It was a bad habit, really. I should have kept going with it, but just couldn't. And
it's certainly not too late to try again at some point. But
yeah, I really want to. I really want to get back into it.
Huh, cool. Did you have any particular influences musically?
Um, so yeah, around when I was 12 or 13, I discovered Kirby Superstar and
Mm.
its awesome soundtrack.
Uh-huh.
And I just fell in love with it. And until then, I never really paid much attention to the music in games. I really loved playing them. I loved playing games for all my life, but I never really paid attention to the music. But from then on, I started digging around for like game official soundtracks, and yeah, I think Kirby Superstar's soundtrack really made an influence in my life.
I recently upset many people by announcing an opinion, and I don't blame them. It is upsetting. I love everything about Kirby, but actually playing it. Like, I love the music, I love the character design, I love like the feel of it for a few seconds, and then I immediately start to lose interest. I feel like I've more or less seen everything there is to see, and it's hard for me to go on. I can watch other people play Kirby; it's very pleasant. I'm always excited when like a new Kirby game is coming out, and then I won't play it for sure.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, I can definitely understand because I don't enjoy playing Kirby either. I think I really liked Superstar. I really liked the SNES one, but anything after that, I felt like they were too easy and too simplistic. And I don't blame Nintendo because Kirby is really intended for, I don't want to say casual gamers, but
No,
people not really like hardcore people, right? It's definitely not for hardcore people. And
if I remember correctly, Sakurai, who created Kirby, said that he wanted Kirby to be the antithesis of Mario, whereas Mario is like you're running and you're stressed and you've got to jump at just the right time, and he was like, Kirby's just gonna fly over it. Kirby's not even worried about it. He'll just eat anybody who messes with him. So he's so overpowered that like I really gravitate towards games like Downwell, where you're underpowered and therefore the challenge feels real. It's like, to me, more realistic emotionally to have to play a game like Mario or Downwell or 1001 Spikes or parts of Cave Story than other things. Like, that's the kind of challenge I end up having to face in my actual adult life pretty regularly. So when I get over that challenge in a game, I feel more confident about like tackling things in my actual life. You probably didn't think you would be able to do that for people, like make people feel actually better about themselves with your game. I think that you have.
No way, no. Yeah, I would have never imagined it. I mean, I did want to make a game someday that would maybe get played by a lot of people, but I never thought it would come this soon, really. Yeah.
Does it put added pressure on what you're gonna do next, or do you feel like I know, like Notch, for instance, he probably reached a point where he was like, I'm never going to top this one. So who knows what he's even doing? He probably wouldn't even tell us if he was doing something. But you're not that big yet, anyway.
No way.
So I'm sure there's some pressure, but do you feel like it's overwhelming pressure to follow up Downwell with something that people are going to like as much?
Yeah, there's definitely pressure because I do feel that Downwell is a pretty good game, as if I can say it myself. But yeah, any game I'm going to make next is definitely going to get compared to Downwell. That's unavoidable, and I'm just not really confident if I can come up with an idea as good as the Gumboots idea. But I actually talked about this with JW from Flambeer. Yeah, and I took his advice that doing something different from Downwell would be just good enough. Like, if my next game was something that's really similar to Downwell in maybe gameplay or style, it would definitely get compared and it might be stressing. But if I try to do something entirely different, then it might not get as
the people may not directly start thinking of them as things they're supposed to weigh against each other.
Yeah,
and I feel very badly for people who make a thing And they want everyone to like love all their creations, like their own children. And instead people are like comparing them and immediately putting one down in order to lift the other one up or something. So is that a direction you might go in, just a completely different genre for the?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think I'm gonna do that. And to add to that, I will be getting like way different experience with game development if I do something that's a lot different from Downwell.
Sure.
So yeah, I would become a better developer from that. So I think I'll definitely go with that direction.
And was Downwell the first game you released commercially?
Yes, it was.
Wow. But there were prototypes you had worked on before that you still have in the background somewhere.
Yeah, they are terrible. So I don't think I don't think I'll ever be like making them publicly playable.
Well, I wonder. A rapper, I think his name is Kendrick Lamar. I don't know if you've heard of him. I'm not very up on modern music trends, but he's a popular rapper today. He just released an album out of nowhere on Thursday called Unmixed and Unmastered, I think it is, which is all like demo tracks he's worked on forever.
Oh, cool.
And people are freaking out. He released it for, I think he sold it, even though it's stuff that was never meant to be sold, and people get an idea of what his creative process is like to a point where they feel closer to him, and that is worth the money. Whether the music is always as good as it could be because it's not his most polished stuff, it works. So I'm like very curious about your past prototypes, but you seem pretty confident that they're just terrible, but I don't think you are the best judge of whether your stuff is good or not. I'm getting that sense.
Well, I don't think I'm as big as Kendrick Lamar just yet. So
not yet, but in the game world, you certainly have that air of like a new voice, a new face that people are excited to get more of. And I've seen this happen in the music industry all the time, actually. Someone has a surprise hit. Like I remember Primus, I don't know if you've heard of them. They were like suddenly way more popular than people thought they would be. So they rushed out like a 6-album EP of just cover songs to capitalize on the fact that they were like a hot name at the moment. And then eventually they faded out. They couldn't get away with that anymore. But when people just decide they like you and they're interested in you, with pop music, that tends to fade. With game development, I'm hoping it sticks around, but it's a whole new world of game development. So it's so hard to say. I don't get the sense, though, that you've given yourself a ton of thought in terms of like, how am I going to market my brand? Like you don't come across this. No, you haven't thought about that.
No, definitely not. Thankfully, very fortunately for me, Devolver handled all that with Downwell, so I really have no idea what I could do with regards to marketing.
Sure.
Yeah.
They've been at it for a while. Fork Parker, he, I'm trying to remember his career. I've got to get him on this show at some point. He's been at it for like 25 years. You know Fork Parker.
Yeah, good luck with getting him on the show.
I think I interviewed him at E3 in like 2008, back when he was with Gamecock, if that's even the same guy, because he doesn't. I don't think Fork is his real name, so I just am guessing that's the same guy. But anyway, so yeah, there's a lot of different directions we can go in. I don't feel like I've known quite enough about your influences. Kirby Superstar influenced you to want to be a game composer, and then you dropped that and you continued high school and then started developing video games. When did you first start actually making them?
I led a really weird life. Well, I suppose all the indie game developers have led a strange life, but in my case, I graduated from that high school and hang on. I have to go way back. Hang on. So as I entered high school, it was a high school that was big in music. So I had to measure in a musical instrument in order to get into that high school. So I measured in singing because it was the easiest instrument that I could get a hang of. I mean, I couldn't play the piano, the violin, or I couldn't play anything back then. So I just figured I could maybe sing. I really didn't give it much thought. And I started studying up on like opera and stuff. I started practicing all that stuff. And I graduated from high school. I was decent at singing. And I decided to enter a university, a music heavy university measuring in classical singing. like by that time I had forgotten about that whole composing stuff. I was just really focused on singing, and I really didn't give it much thought when entering the university either. It was just a thing that I could do, so I figured I would just study up on it more.
Sure. Were you thinking, or were your aspirations at that point to be an opera singer?
Yeah, it was.
Cool. Did you have opera singer heroes? Were there like people you emulated?
There were some singers that I liked, but sorry. So, hang on. What was I talking about?
Singers, opera singers. Like, did you look up to Pavarotti or?
Oh yeah, I really liked Pavarotti. Actually, like he's a tenor, and I'm a bass, so it's a kind of different thing. But I really liked his singing, but I didn't really like singing myself, I realized. And at my third year in university, I started to really think about how I wanted to what I wanted to do with my life, and I asked myself, if I could become anything in the world, like absolutely anything in the world, what would I become? And I found myself wanting to become a game developer more than anything.
Huh.
So yeah.
And what led you to think it was possible? Because you certainly didn't expect it to happen the way that it happened and for it to go quite as well as it did. But still, I have to imagine that part of you thought, well, it could happen, and I'm going to put my effort into that because I believe I at least have a chance. So do you remember when you started to feel as though it was possible for you to become a game developer on your own?
Well, there was a whole indie game thing that was getting quite big around that time. Like, there were many really good indie games that was developed by maybe one or two people, maybe a little bit more, but a small number of people nonetheless. And also it was just that I wasn't sure that I had a chance. I wasn't really confident about anything, but I just really didn't want to become an opera singer or like any music. I just really didn't want to work in the music industry. So I felt like, what the hell, I could like give this game development thing my best shot. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, but I could at least give it a try.
Sure. Did you give yourself an internal timeline of like, well, I'm going to give myself a few years to focus on game development, but if it doesn't work out, then I'll have to go back and like slave away at opera singing? Or like, did you think about what the plan would be from there?
Yeah, I didn't really have a solid thought, but I think I would have given it maybe 2 or 3 years, just working part-time jobs and making games on the side and seeing if it worked out. If it didn't work out, I would have become a music teacher, maybe at a local high school or something.
Wow. And not that there's anything wrong with that. It's a great career, but you weren't going to give yourself all that long, it sounds like. Like, if Downwell hadn't worked out, but you still ended up working at 2014 to 2015, if that hadn't worked, maybe another year for another game and another year for another game, and if they hadn't happened, then it might have just been a music teacher.
Maybe, yeah, quite possibly.
Oh. And were you working part-time while you were working on Downwell in order to pay the bills?
Well, for the first few months, I was working part-time, and I was also attending university. But around October or September, I got a tweet from Devolver asking me to send my game to them, and then shortly after, I got a deal with them to publish my game, and then they provided me with development fund, which was basically the living cost, really. So that allowed me to stop working part-time, and I quit my part-time job then and started working full-time. And I also stopped going to the university because I felt like I had a solid game if Devolver wants to publish it. So I just dropped out of school and started to focus.
So it wasn't that long ago. You were still in university.
Yeah, I was.
Oh, weird. So your life has just flipped completely in the past couple of years.
It really did, thanks to Phil Parker. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you start promoting on Twitter pretty early with Downwell? I think that I discovered Downwell before Devolver reached out to you. I think it might have been
Right.
Brandon Boyer or someone who is one of these kind of known curators for indie games somehow showed it to me or retweeted it or something. Did you get on social media pretty quickly with GIFs of Downwell?
Yeah, I did. I mean, it wasn't to promote the game or anything, but it was more to just see how people would react. Like, like you post pictures, and if you get a lot of likes or retweets, you just feel happy, warm and fuzzy inside. I just wanted that. It wasn't really to like market the game or like get people to know about it. It was just to like see if I get any reactions. So yeah, I was posting GIFs way before. Yeah, I was actually posting screenshots of the prototypes that I worked on before Downwell. And then naturally, when I started working on Downwell, I started posting screenshots of that.
And did you notice attention started to blow up when you started posting Downwell stuff?
Yeah, people seem to like it way more than my past prototypes.
I'm so curious about those prototypes, though. I'll have to get to them somehow one of these days.
Maybe.
So it was Devolver. If it weren't for Devolver, do you think you would have ended up taking a lot longer to be able to complete Downwell?
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. And their confidence in you probably didn't hurt either. It sounds like once you knew Devolver was going to take care of it, you're like, well, maybe I really do have something here.
Yeah, it was really really something for me. I mean, I really didn't think Downwell was that good, but I didn't believe in myself, but I believed in Devolver's decision to like work with me. So yeah, that definitely gave me a confident boost kind of thing.
And how has it been working with Devolver?
It has been amazing. Like they are such a great people. They're saints, really. I mean, I kind of expected them to be I don't know. I really didn't expect them to be this great. Like it's really unbelievable that they are really good people, but they are.
Yeah, they seem to be to me as well. They've got a certain like dirtiness to them. Like people hear Devolver and they're like, like yesterday's Chinese food. It's sweet and fried and delicious, but it's like this is bad for me. But when you actually meet them, in my experience anyway, they've got just like a passion and a lightness to them, and they can be dirty and fun too. But they really are professionals, and I'm like trying to figure out like their business acumen. They'll take huge chances on folks such as yourself. I think they did Gods Will Be Watching as well.
Right.
Always Sometimes Monsters. They take these huge chances on folks who may not have any commercial viability out of seeming just pure passion. And not all their projects do super well, and they've continued to go about things the way they do because I think they just love it. That's how it seems.
Yeah, I'm super thankful that they gave me a chance, gave me a no-name, some random guy in Japan making this weird-ass game. I can't believe they made that decision to like give me a bunch of money and like help me with the game. I'm super thankful that they are that open towards new developers.
Sure. And they own Downwell alongside you kind of forever? Is that how it works from there? I don't know if you're allowed to talk about all the business stuff. That's okay.
I'm not sure. I'm not really certain about the contract that I signed. I should be, but I really didn't read up much on it. But I don't think they own the IP. So if I were to make the sequel for it, I think I could. I don't have to put it through Devolver, but I probably will.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the contract thing was a really bad thing for me.
I
don't think they made it really bad for me. No.
Yeah, I would hope so. I would doubt that they would, but contracts are unpredictable. You never know. So they paid you up front, and now you get paid when Downwell sells, and they get paid when Downwell sells, and there's some percentage worked out, I'd guess.
Yeah, it's like that.
That sounds good. It sounds like a fair contract. It's been interesting for me to see how indie games are being sought after by bigger name entities. We had Michael Todd on the show not that long ago. He did Electronic Superjoy, another fun game. Has some similar mechanics to Downwell now and again, but it is a very different thing. He's been contacted by this company, and they want him to make a new esport called, I think it's called Go Electric Samurai. So he's just like making an esport now with all this money. They gave him all this money up front, and he has to make like an arena shooter. Shovel Knight is now being published in Japan by Nintendo. I don't know if you had heard that.
Oh yeah, it's been getting some news as of recent, I think.
Oh, has it in Japan?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
I think I saw it somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know of Nintendo to have ever done that. Maybe they have, and I just didn't pick up on it. But to publish an indie game made in the United States, it seems like there's a lot more attention on indies in general, and a lot of crossover between the United States and Japan, like there hadn't been before. Do you think the fact that you could speak English was an advantage for you to be able to get involved with Devolver and the Western game scene in general?
Definitely. Well, I wouldn't have been playing indie games if it weren't for my ability to like speak and understand English. And yeah, just I don't think Devolver would have. I don't think communication would have gone as smoothly as it has if it weren't for my if I wasn't able to speak English. So
Sure.
yeah, I would say being able to speak English has been a tremendous advantage for me compared to other Japanese developers who maybe can't speak English.
Sure. I don't know if Cave Story would have ever come to consoles and become the huge thing as it is if it weren't for Tyrone Rodriguez of Nicholas, who knows Japanese, reaching out to him and kind of talking him into it. My understanding is it wasn't a short process. He was like, I just don't want to deal with the game development thing. It's so stressful. I did as good as I could. The game is out there. But Tyrone really encouraged him for a while, similar to how it's encouraging for you to hear from Devolver. And that language barrier could have killed that if it weren't for the fact that Tyrone is fluent in Japanese. Do you know a lot of other game developers in Japan who you feel are a little bit more locked into, or at least have fewer options and fewer ability to reach out because they don't speak English?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I feel like the language barrier is a huge thing because, well, just as you said it, there are publishers like Devolver or Nicholas that might reach out to some developers in Japan, but there is none of that in Japan. There are no publishers in Japan that would reach out to indies here. It's just not as big as it is in the West, the indies in Japan. I mean, so yeah, everything big happens in the West, I feel like. So it's quite essential to be able to communicate in English if you want to be getting your game out into getting your game out globally.
Sure.
Right.
And did you sell Downwell in Japan as well?
Yeah.
How did it do there compared to elsewhere?
It did quite well.
Yeah? Awesome.
Wow.
That's good to hear. I'm always hoping to hear that the Japanese indie game scene is starting to grow. I know Bit Summit has gone on for 3 years now. There's another show in Tokyo that I'm blanking on the name of. It seems like it's starting to expand. Naturally, it would, but there still seems like there's constraints on it that there aren't here in the United States. What do you make of both the development scene, the game development scene in Japan, and the game culture in general? What do you think it's like compared to what you've seen in the West or other places?
Well, so the style of games that's made in Japan and elsewhere is definitely very different. I mean, in the US, for instance, you guys have huge development studios like making really high production value games, like I don't know, games with guns, basically Call of Duty, Grand Theft Auto, or maybe just not even that, like Assassin's Creed, and really big, really polished, high quality games. You guys have all of that, but Japan, we do have some huge studios like Nintendo or Square Enix or From Software. We do have that, but
Would you ever consider working for them? Like, did you, when you were getting into game development, did you think, well, maybe this will lead to me just being a manager or an artist, or no, it doesn't sound like artist. That was never something, but it's something at one of these bigger companies, or did you always think, I'm gonna be indie or nothing? There's no way I would be able to work for Capcom or something like that.
I did consider going into a game development studio company, but I heard from some game dev people that I knew in Japan that if I went into those companies, I wouldn't be able to like design a game for myself. It would be some years of working as like a part of the team, doing something that I might not necessarily want to do, and then maybe, just maybe, I might get a chance to design my own game. So I really didn't want to do that. I didn't want to work on games that I didn't enjoy, especially because mobile, like social mobile games are big in Japan, right? And many game companies are making that nowadays. So I really didn't want to be a part of that. So, and I knew that indie thing was a possible thing to do. So I decided to take my chance with that.
And I'm assuming the phone version of Downwell is done better in Japan than the PC version.
Yeah, I mean, PC gaming is still a rare thing in Japan, I think.
But everyone has computers, it seems like.
Yeah, but they don't think of PCs as a gaming device.
Why do you? Because you grew up in Japan, so you may have more insight on that than other folks we've had on the show. It's come up quite a few times on the show, but most times the only answer people can give us is it's just the way it is. We don't get it either, but that's all they can do. But having lived it since day one, what do you think it is about computers that says to Japanese people, Japanese culture, don't play games on this? This isn't where you play games.
Well, that's just the way it is. I'm really not sure. I feel like it might have to do with Sony and Nintendo having their gaming consoles, and that's obviously big, right? Like they're pushing PlayStation, whatever Nintendo has, like Wii U and Wii and stuff. That's a thing that's built for video games, and we do have a lot of that. And we have, if you go into like a train in Tokyo, someone's ought to be playing it on a DS or Vita. You will see a lot of that. But
my understanding is the DS and Vita have been outselling the PS4 and the Wii U since day one. So it seems like living room experience with games is on the decline as well. But it's mostly about handheld. It's not shifting to PC all that much.
No, it's not. I don't know what the core problem is, why PCs aren't the gaming platform of choice for Japanese. It's just that no one does it here. No one plays their games on PC here, and yeah, I can't explain it. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
It's a mystery to me as well.
Yeah. We can talk it out, or we can drop it if you're getting bored. That's okay too. In Japan, though, it seems like video games have been a part of the mainstream culture for a lot longer than the United States. In the United States now, you're not necessarily like a beta male or on the outskirts of normal if you like love Dragon Quest or Final Fantasy. It's like we're finally getting to the point where we have a generation of people who grew up with these things and have decided to make it normal for everybody. But when I was growing up, it was like you're supposed to like sports, you're supposed to like, Bruce Springsteen, and if you're sitting around listening to the Final Fantasy soundtrack, then you're a friggin' weirdo and nobody's gonna like you. But that's slowly changed here in Japan. It seems like it's always been a little bit more culturally acceptable to like games, and games seem to be like everywhere. I was in Tokyo only once, but there was a huge billboard for like Space Invaders, and I was like, what? That's, you'd never see that here. Maybe for a big game that tries to sell itself like it's a Hollywood movie, like Call of Duty or Assassin's Creed. Games here have really latched on to trying to like convince people who like movies, like you can like games too. It's trying to drag them in while telling people like video games, you're not that weird. You're just like someone who likes movies. So they're trying to coalesce those two enthusiast cultures. Whereas in Japan, it seems like that's never been an issue. It's just been like video games are great and normal. But this is how it seems to me. You've actually lived it, so you can tell me if that's accurate. Is it any sort of cultural badge of dishonor to like love video games in Japan, or does it seem like it's something you can tell people you like without worrying about being shunned or whatever?
No, you would never be shunned for liking video games. I do feel that it's very mainstream here, more so than in maybe other countries. I don't know why that is. I feel that it might have to do with Nintendo being a Japanese company, and naturally we might support the companies that's in our country.
Sure.
You know, and Nintendo even might push their console harder than maybe other countries. I don't know about now, but it has been like that.
Sure.
So
it's always been my sideline analysis that Japan brought up on a long culture of non-literal, non-realistic, like expressionistic, abstract art. Traditional Buddhist paintings, black and white. That was like something you would see hanging on a wall, whereas here you would see like an incredibly detailed, realistic oil painting on people's walls.
Right.
So like the West has associated like quality with realism, whereas Japan is always, I hate to speak about your country like I know anything about it because I've only been there once, but it seems like from what I've read and heard, embracing the abstract and the non-realistic, simple, what they would call cartoony in the United States is much more embraced there. So therefore video games in the 80s, which weren't capable of realism, were embraced as well. Whereas in the United States, it was like, that must be for kids. It looks simple, looks like it's cartoonish. That's why the original Final Fantasy and Legend of Zelda, they were considered probably kids' toys. And Nintendo actually had to sell the Nintendo Entertainment System, the Famicom in Japan, as a kid's toy in the United States in order for it to take off. They sold it with like a robot and a laser gun. And I think they did it in Japan as well. But you're probably younger than the Famicom. Were you like even alive when the Famicom came out?
I don't think so. My first ever console was the SNES. I was born in 1992, so yeah.
That's so great. I graduated from high school in 94. I like could be your teen dad. Easy.
Okay.
I'm not. I don't think I
Really?
Cool,
Okay.
So here I am rambling on and on about Japan to a Japanese person. That's pretty silly. So like these days, when you look at the games that are selling in Japan, do you like what you see? Do you feel good about where things are going, or are you worried about anything?
Well, because I lived in New Zealand, because I spent a part of my youth in New Zealand, I grew up playing more of Western games than Japanese games. And I can't say that I have played a lot of Japanese games, and I can't say that I am a fan of the Japanese games now. Well, I do like some games. I do like games by From Software, Platinum Games, and Nintendo. Those guys are making like super great games, but anything other than that, I haven't really had the chance to play, nor does it really interest me at all.
Sure.
Yeah.
I've heard, I think I actually read this in an interview with you and Kara Ellison from a while back, and I've also heard it otherwise, that it seems like the boom in Japanese games these days is just like cute and sexy. If it doesn't have cute and sexy in it, people don't feel confident that it's going to sell. To me, that's like a very sad thing. It wasn't always that way growing up. Cute and sexy had its place in Japanese games and in all games, but it almost speaks to like an underconfidence to me when I see a game developer or publisher say like, well, we had to put bikini girls in this game because otherwise we're not going to be able to compete with all the other bikini girl games, and that's what people are playing games for now. I don't want that to be true, and I'd love to be wrong, but is that how it looks to you too sometimes?
I'm really not sure about how it is nowadays, but I feel like there definitely are games that focuses more on how character is, like in terms of appearance, and like more so than the actual gameplay itself.
Sure.
Right. So they would sell their game with the characters, their designs, and I feel like not a lot of games focus as much on game design as it should.
Mm-hmm. And it seems like the games that do focus on design, like you mentioned, some of Platinum, their work, very design focused. They don't sell unless they have a character like Bayonetta, for instance, to put on a billboard or put out in front in order to draw people in. Do you think maybe it's because there are so many games in Japan on phone, on 3DS, on PS Vita, on consoles if you want, that in order to make your game stand out, like in the United States anyway, I can speak to this, there's so many more games than there used to be. So if you want people to get your game, it needs to be remarkable. It needs to be something that people are going to end up talking about as they have a Downwell, or else it's just going to get lost in the sea of games that are everywhere. There's no hunger people have for games because they're already so well fed. It's not because they don't like them. It's because they're like literally everywhere. Do you feel like it's that way too?
No, I don't think it's that. I don't think it's that there are too many games. I feel like it's more so that it's easier to sell. It's more eye-catching to have a cute girl, or like not even a cute girl, maybe, but maybe a cute boy on the cover of the
Somebody
game.
cute.
Yeah, like some cute anime drawing. Oh, I shouldn't say that. I'm really not.
You can say it. No one's going to think you're mean as someone born in Japan, living in Japan, saying that anime is kind of a useful marketing technique for video games. That's not mean. You're not mean. Don't worry. It's okay.
I'm not sure. I'm really not sure because I don't know for certain that the games of recent have been like that in Japan. I just feel like when I go to a game store, there are a lot of games on the shelf that features anime kind of drawings on the package. I don't know if they're like their newest games. I'm just
That's what you see. Sure. Like, can you imagine Downwell sitting on a shelf next to them? Like, I can easily imagine. I see Shovel Knight is sold at retail in the United States. Right. It's right alongside Call of Duty and whatever the new Fire Emblem is. So there's space for anime style, realistic Western Hollywood style, and then Shovel Knight, like all doing great alongside each other. Not so much in Japan, it doesn't sound like.
No, indie games are definitely not as big here.
No. When is that gonna? How are we gonna change that? How are we gonna just fix that today? Please?
I have no idea. I mean, well, there just hasn't been a big indie game hit thing in Japan yet. I
wonder what it would take. Sometimes I think somebody like Miyamoto would have to quit Nintendo and make an indie game for PC only, for people to be like, well, I guess I'll break tradition or break what I'm used to, break out of my comfort zone and play a game on a computer, even though I prefer it on what I know, which is handhelds or phones or whatever. I wonder about that. I heard Minecraft is fairly popular in Japan. So that's pretty
Minecraft is popular.
Yeah, that speaks to me that things might be headed in a different direction.
Maybe.
I hope so. I was when you were talking before about potentially playing at Capcom, I was remembering Shinji Mikami's gameography. I don't know if you've ever looked at it, but it's like just stuff he was miserable, then Goof Troop, the game, and then after that is like Resident Evil. So he had like a break where he went from the Goof Troop part of his career to the Resident Evil part. But it was like years and years and years of that before people started to, at Capcom anyway, say this is a guy whose creative vision we want to give more voice to. But you skipped over all that, thank God. Do you think you'd ever move to the United States as opposed to Japan?
I doubt I would move to United States because it's a bit scary there.
Yeah, tell me more about that. What is it about here?
I don't know. Maybe like the guns and stuff, and the whole Donald Trump stuff is kind of scary too. I'm not really familiar with all that yet, but
it's
a bit intimidating.
No, you're right on the money. Yeah, those are things I'm scared about too.
I would rather move to somewhere in Europe. Yeah, I would really like to move to Europe someday.
Huh. Would it just be a matter of developing more finances and feeling like you have a solid base to land on when you head to Europe?
Yeah, basically that.
Huh, cool.
Maybe I'll make yeah.
Huh. So I can't help but be curious about what you might be working on next. It doesn't sound like you don't sound like someone who is like finished with Downwell. You sound like you still can't help but have ideas for it. So I would not be surprised if the Downwell gets an update of some kind, or it's heading to consoles soon. That's exciting. I wonder if that'll change the game up in any way. But you're also thinking about what your next project would be. I don't know if there's any thoughts about that you could share with us.
Actually, with regards to Downwell, I really want to be just done with it.
Yeah.
And I really want to move on to the next game. And there are some ideas that I would want to do in a Downwell sequel. So I might do a sequel sometime in the future, but definitely not for the next game.
Okay.
And, but yeah, I don't have that solid of an idea for the next game yet, but I want to start making prototypes as soon as possible. And it's probably going to be for mobile, like Downwell was. Probably. I'm not sure, but just want to start testing out ideas, basically.
Oh, cool.
Seeing what works.
So you're guessing it won't be huge and complicated yet. You want to stick with something with a simple dynamic mechanic in order to make it palatable for phones. Do you ever think about wanting to make like a massive RPG or like a huge 3D action game, like something from Software or something along those lines?
Not by myself, no. Not as an indie developer. I would really like to experience what it's like to make a game in a bigger company, like in an actual like big ass studios.
Sure.
I would really want to like experience working at places like Nintendo or From Software someday, but right now I just want to experiment with small, solid, fun ideas that work on mobile, or that just works as a smaller game. Yeah.
What about potentially passing the Downwell mechanic to a larger genre? Have you thought about maybe making it like an action exploration game where you're going down most of the time, but you also take divergent paths, or maybe end up getting the gravity flipped and having to go up or go left and right, but always moving? That's sort of what Terry Kavanagh did with
VVVVV.
Yeah, I never can decide whether I'm going to see them. I was actually good with them. And it was still simple, and I think that ended up on phone at some point too.
It did, yeah.
Yeah. But it gave people a little bit more of a grander scale to what they were experiencing while just loving the mechanics.
Right. Yeah, I feel like I could experiment. Actually, I did have that idea at some point during the development of Downwell. I wanted to make it be a Metroidvania kind of thing, exploration-based game.
Sure.
And the idea was that I would have the surface area before the world. The surface area would be an explorative space, and then maybe you would get upgrades down the well, and then you would like be able to go to newer places and on the surfaces and stuff. And I tried that out, but I couldn't make it work back then. So I might try some stuff like that with the sequel if I ever make it, but yeah, I'll just have to try it out and see if it works. Really.
To find out. What do you feel like you've learned about game development, about the creative process through making Downwell, from starting it and truly finishing it and putting it out? How has it changed you?
The most important thing I learned is that you really should set the release date way past when you can think you can finish it. Like back when I started working on the game, it was October, and I thought I would finish the game in like a month, right? And I definitely didn't do that. And after that, I told myself I would release the game on April 2015, but I couldn't do that, and the game ended up getting released on October. So yeah, it takes super long, and I really underestimated, well, actually overestimated my skills to like with regards to the development speed that I would be able to handle things.
Was it about hitting roadblocks that you didn't expect?
Yeah.
And having to figure out how to fix them more or less on your own?
Right. That was definitely it. And I would get stuck with some ideas, like I wouldn't be able to come up with new ideas, and there was a period in the development where I just couldn't make anything new for about 2 months.
Wow.
Just like
a writer's block type feeling, it sounds.
Yeah, it was definitely that. Anything I made, it just didn't really feel right to me, and I just kept on like scrapping it and then making new things. It doesn't work, scrapping it, and like, yeah.
Huh. But you were trying. You were still pushing forward. It sounds like you didn't give up. I mean, we know that you didn't because you completed it. But were there days when you would think, I have to work on Downwell today? I'll start in like an hour, and then you never got to it because it felt like too much of a crushing responsibility.
No, I never felt. Oh no, that would be lying. There were some days when I felt like I regretted starting out with Downwell, really, because it was just getting way bigger for me. I mean, Downwell was meant to be a super small game that I would release on my own on the App Store and maybe like have my friends download it and stuff. But it ended up having like Devolver publishing it, and it ended up having Eirik and Jonas like making music and sounds for it. It just became this big thing, and before release, it was getting covered on sites like Kotaku and like the gaming news sites that I used to read as a reader, and it was just getting out of hand for me, and that was so much pressure just before release, because it just meant that if the game ended up sucking, then because it's getting published by this huge ass publisher, the game was bound to be like. It was bound to be bought by a lot of people, regardless of its quality.
Sure.
So if it ended up sucking, then I would just become famous for the guy that failed, regardless, like, despite having the best publisher and the best composer and the best sound design guy.
Yeah.
Kind of
So it happens a lot where something that starts off as I'm doing this instead of my job, when that thing becomes your job, your relationship with it changes, how it feels changes, the role that it has in your life changes, and then sometimes it causes people to just quit because it's no longer fun. But despite the fact that it became something you had to do because you accepted the money from Devolver, you still managed to keep it fun somehow, it sounds like.
Yeah, I managed somehow. Yeah.
Do you think that the next project will have less of that kind of pressure because you now know if you just make something that is fun for you to make, even if you don't think that it's perfect, it could end up getting 10s out of 10 anyway.
Yeah, I am more confident than I was before, definitely after Downwell. I would still, I still wouldn't have like 100% confidence with the stuff that I make, but yeah, I would definitely not get as stressed out as I did with Downwell,
Sure.
as regards to like how it will be really received and that sort of stuff.
Hmm. But it sounds like you still have some internal caution about not doing something too big, because if you do, it may be overwhelming and rob you of some of the joy of creating.
Yeah, I still want to make some smaller stuff before I take on the huge idea, like bigger scale game. Because I myself enjoy the smaller scale games, like smaller mobile games. So just want to
Sure.
experiment around with that first.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But do you have in the back of your head something you would do, like if someone just gave you, I don't know, $20 million and we're like, make a video game? Do you think you would just end up making like 200 games for $100,000 each, or do you think you would end up using that money to make something huge?
Oh, I would love to make something huge. I have never given it much thought. I don't have any ideas for a big game, but I would really love to go through that process, yeah,
Sure,
and
sure.
see what I could do.
I wonder about a Downwell 64. Yeah, I'm seeing more. Yeah, that's not the most marketable term for it. But I'm seeing more and more games with simple graphics, but they're just very, very clean, usually without textures. Adam Saltzman, who made Cannonball, who I think Cannonball fits in the same genre as Downwell in some ways, except you're going left to right instead of straight down. His new game has that kind of a look to it. Have you tinkered with polygon-based graphics at all, or do you think you're
No,
still?
I haven't. I would love to someday. I would love to be able to like figure out how to use Unity someday, but as of now, I'm just full up with Game Maker, and I
Sure.
want to get better at using that. So yeah, my focus is there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
2D, yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Well, I'm excited to see what you'll do next. And you're headed to GDC pretty soon. What is the GDC trip simply to see other developers, or is it to promote something? Is it will you have like a booth, or will it just be you hanging around having a good time?
I actually have a talk that I'm going to be doing at GDC.
Oh, cool. What's the talk going to be on?
It's going to be about Downwell. It's going to be about how I discovered the main mechanic, which is the gun boost mechanic, and how I based the entire game around it and stuff.
Sure. We didn't spoil your talk, did you? Did you like give your talk today?
I don't think I have spoiled it. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Yeah, because those are all things I wanted to know as well, and you did touch upon them, but we didn't like belabor about them.
Right.
Yeah. Huh. Is there more games you can tell us about? Was it just basically Spelunky, or were there other games that let you know that the kind of mechanic you had were going to be able to work?
No, I think Spelunky and Nuclear Throne are my
They're
main.
both so recent.
What's that?
They're both pretty recent games, which.
Yeah, I suppose they are. But I got into it. I got into those two games so much. So yeah.
So as like an adult, those were the games it sounds like you were really into.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
And well, as a child, in my childhood, I really loved playing Super Metroid. So, and there is a wall jumping mechanic in Downwell, which is like the exact same from Metroid, how Metroid does it.
Sure.
So I suppose that might have been an influence as well.
Were there ever thoughts about Downwell not being, because it has a real atmosphere to it. I'm glad you brought up Metroid. Those games I was talking about before, like Undertale has a real atmosphere to it. Cave Story, Metroid, all of like you're finding something. Spelunky, about being in caves. They're all like these cave-related games about you're finding something that was always underneath your feet, but you didn't know it was there. You didn't know it would be this strange You didn't know that it would give you this kind of challenge and this kind of excitement and sense of discovery. I don't think Downwell would give us that if you flipped it and instead of heading down, you're just like heading into the sky and there's like birds and UFOs and stuff up there. It would be like, yeah, I look at the sky all the time. There's nothing that mystical about that. But with Downwell, you get that sense that you're touching on something slightly magical. At least that's how I feel about it. Was that something intended? Did you give that thought? Did you ever consider having Downwell not go down, have it go, somewhere else?
No. I mean, the initial idea was that I wanted to make a game that scratched the Spelunky itch on mobile. So it was from the get-go that I wanted to make something where you would be going downwards, and naturally you would be going downwards into a cave-like environment.
Sure.
There's just something to like going into a cave, isn't there? There's like an adventurous feeling to it. So,
yeah, Legend of Zelda, the very first game, the first thing most people do is like, I'm just going to go down into a black thing. I don't know what's in there. I'm just going to find out. There's something about it that feels really exciting, scary, but fun at the same time. Yeah.
Right.
Huh. And you just knew that, having brought up on games like Super Metroid, so it felt right.
Yeah, and initially I was just going to have it be a very vertical cave, but then I realized that it could work as a well as well. And I personally felt like a well was an interesting. Oh, like if there was a well, wouldn't you just like go up to it and look down? Like that's just how it is for me. Like well is an interesting thing for me. I always look down into it, so I felt like a game where you would be going down a well might be satisfying. Just base a game on a well, yeah.
And I'm remembering, I never thought of it this way before, but Ridiculous Fishing, you're not going into a cave, but you're headed down, and you know what you're going to find down there. Right. It's about navigating on your way, and gravity pulling you all the time, getting that sense of like, wow.
Now that I think of it, I think Ridiculous Fishing might have been an influence with Downwell as well.
Without realizing it, I didn't think so. You don't seem to be the kind of guy whom like sits and makes a plan, like I'm gonna do something like those guys did. But you enjoy your moments a lot. That's how you seem. And you probably had a lot of fun. I know I did with Ridiculous Fishing. Then before you know it, your subconscious was leading you to make something in that general genre. I'd say they're probably, well, not quite the same genre, but they're related enough that you can see.
Yeah, I feel like they are. Yeah.
Oh, what about a crossover? I'm just hungry for more Downwell. Like I'm glad you're moving on to a new thing. And I don't want to disparage you from that. I'm excited to see what it is. But I'd be totally happy if you made the Downwell Metroidvania, or like a Downwell expansion with like fishing elements or something. I don't know. If you just threw a bunch more Downwell at me, as long as it wasn't like a ton of work and it exhausted you. But we've seen it work so often with Nuclear Throne. They put themselves out and people have been playing that game forever. And they just added and added and added. And people have felt like they're being given a gift by a friend on like a regular basis, and it feels really fun. To a lesser extent, Binding of Isaac has done that. There's Binding of Isaac, and then Rebirth, and now Afterbirth, and now there's going to be yet another game about sinking into depths and discovering things you didn't think you would find. So I don't want to like tell you what to do, of course, but I can't help but be excited about the idea of before Downwell 2. There just being like more little incremental pieces of Downwell for us to absorb. I don't know if that would be super hard to do all those updates, and like if they would have to go through, if PlayStation would let you just update whenever you want, or there's some process there. I assume there is.
I'm not sure. I don't think I think implementing them wouldn't be that hard if I had the ideas. But right now, as I said, I just want to like work on a different new thing. So I think I'll be focusing on that for now. Yeah.
Does it? Yeah. This is what you're going through. Pressure. Like, I'm pressuring you to make more Downwell, and you're smiling, being like, "Thank you, but no, not right now. Sorry." Like, do you feel bad that people like me like want more, and you're not going to do it right now?
Well, I feel very glad that people like you and like others want more of Downwell. I feel like that's a success with Downwell because you like it that much. And I am kind of apologetic that I can't like deliver on those like wishes as of this moment. But sometime in the future, there will probably be a thing to Downwall.
Yeah, and I imagine it'll be all the more special for me when I'm 45 or when Downwell 2 finally comes out. It'll have been in my heart for so long. So excited about what it'll be, and then it'll finally become real. The waiting might make it all the more sweet, I suppose.
maybe.
Do you think it'll come to consoles other than PlayStation at some point?
No, I'm not sure yet. Well, there are no talks as of now. I don't think porting to Nintendo consoles would be as easy as it was with PlayStation consoles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because of the language it was written in, or other processes?
I suppose it would be because of the language.
Yeah.
I mean, the tool that it was used to make. I mean, Game Maker supports exporting to PlayStations, but I don't think it supports exporting to like 3DS or the Wii U just yet. So
I thought that I've heard mixed things. I thought Austin Ivensmith of Way Forward told us that it does export to Wii U, which was pretty cool. I don't know about 3DS though. I think, but I've heard from the several people that it doesn't as well. So I don't want to. I mean, Austin made DuckTales Remastered. He knows what he's talking about. He made Mighty Switch Force. He's worked on those series, so he's doing stuff. He must know what he's talking about. But things change all the time. You know, maybe the latest Game Maker doesn't work on Wii U. I don't even know if Nintendo wants people to be supporting Wii U with a project that might take a year to come out because their next thing is rumored to be on the horizon. So hard to say.
Right. Yeah, I've never heard that Game Maker could export to Nintendo consoles yet. So if it could, then porting would be very easy, and I'm sure it will be. It might get released on those consoles, but I've just never heard it.
Yeah. Well, I've got my project for the afternoon. I'm going to find out if Game Maker can export to, because I would love to play it on the Wii U. I love having it where I have it now. The Wii U has such a nice big screen, and I'm accustomed to the pad on there. My wife will be watching Downton Abbey or Breaking Bad or something, so I'll play video games on the Wii U. So that would be perfect for me, selfishly. And I think it would do very well with Nintendo audiences as well. I think it could do really good. Well, we have a couple more minutes left. I don't know if any questions came in. It was an earlier show than normal, so we may not have gotten to. Oh, he's going to find it. Ricardo Chirito is excited. He's tweeted about it. Thanks, Ricardo, if you're watching.
Thank you.
He's working on Hardcore Ops, a game I've never heard of. And he's happily married, and he lives in Venezuela. Isn't that weird? You're an international name now, Ojiro. Pretty exciting.
No, I'm not.
Nacho Beard. Good old Nacho Beard.
Oh, Nacho Beard.
Yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with Nacho Beard as well. Nacho Beard asks, what was the process for designing the level generator? For example, did you start making the level by hand and then transitioning them to computer generated? Or did you let the computer somehow generate it from the start?
Well, so how the level generator works is quite similar to Spelunky. It just has these sets of like rooms that it generates in a different order. So if you have been playing Downwell for a while, you will start to notice like similar environmental patterns. And yes, so the same things get generated just in a different order. And with regards to the level design itself, I started out with a very closed area where you would have to like land and go left or go right and like drop down into this small hole, then proceed to the next. But as I went on with the development, I realized that more open level designs are better because it was really a game about maneuvering the space with the gumboots. And with closed levels, you just didn't have the chance to float around, jump around, and maneuver through the space. So yeah, I think the game really changed when I realized that open spaces are better and started just designing that way.
Huh. So in closed, it's a very claustrophobic game. It's a narrow game, but at the same time, opening it up a little bit more, so there's some juxtaposition. You always feel confined, which makes it all the more exuberant and exciting when you get to blow up and fly a little bit and use the space freely.
Right.
Maybe that's why. Is that already in your talk? Again, I'm worried I'm gonna spoil it. Is that why gun boots are awesome?
No, oh shit! No, this might be in my talk. Maybe. Yeah, it might be. Yeah. No, don't worry. It's okay.
Well, I'm excited about your talk. I hope it's up online at some point so I can watch it.
I don't.
Good. Are you nervous about the talk?
I'm nervous about any talk that I have to give. I just. Oh man, I'm super nervous.
Scary because you want it to be good. It's clear you wouldn't be nervous if you didn't truly, deeply care. Even with your opera singing, I just get the sense that you came to love music and opera, but you didn't want to have to make it. Because what if you do it bad? Ugh, that is such a pain. That would be so sad for everybody, yourself and everyone included. But video game development, I know you can just do. I wanted to talk to you about this, and for some reason I didn't get to it. Asking you about your instinct about what feels good in a game. I don't know if you would even have an answer for it, but I am confident that you have that instinct. You've tossed out the ideas that didn't feel right. You ran with the idea that did, and now it's a huge success, and hopefully only going to get more successful as time goes on. It may be just the game that always pays your rent forever. There's no reason why it would ever go out of style, from what I can tell.
Hopefully that's the case.
Yeah.
I really want to keep making games. I do have, I feel like I do have a feel for how the game should feel in order for it to in order for it to feel good. I think I am aware that I do feel that I have the feel for that, but yeah. I feel like I'm definitely not as experienced yet. I still have much to learn, I feel like. So I can't be full of myself just yet.
Sure. Well, that's the thing. If you felt like you were done, then where would the urge be to try to take risks, to better yourself? Wouldn't be there, I'd imagine.
Right.
But you've still got it. You've got knowledge that you have the instinct and the skill and the ability, plus the awareness that there's even more, even better you could do in the future. So, man, that's exciting. You're 20 something. You got this huge life ahead of you. It's gonna be so long before you reach the George Lucas or John Carpenter part of your career where you're just kind of tired and still making stuff, but people don't really like it anymore. You got so long. You got 40 years. It's so exciting.
Yeah, hopefully I can make it worth my while, really.
I think you will. I think everyone is going to benefit from this career you've decided to embark on. Good for us.
I hope so.
Yeah, I think so. You have 2 Twitter accounts, I think, English and Japanese. Is that right?
Yeah, I do.
It is at Moppin, Moppin _
Yep, that's right.
That's the English one. What is the Japanese one again?
Japanese one is Moppin. It's 4 P's. Just Moppin.
Got it. Downwell is available on Steam, Android, and iOS.
Right.
And it's coming to PlayStation Vita and PlayStation 4 pretty darn soon. I'm really excited to play it.
Probably soon. Yeah.
Yeah, I love console gaming. I'll play it on the PlayStation 4 again, for sure. And if I can find out that it's easy to put Game Maker games on Nintendos, maybe it'll be on Nintendos someday.
Maybe, yeah.
As for me, I'm at TronNots on Twitter. You can follow me for hearing about things, I guess. You can listen to the show on Libsyn and iTunes. You can watch it on YouTube, youtube.com/SupHolmesShow. And I think that's our show. Thanks so much, everybody. Take care.
Thank you very much.